I'm Dr. Bob McLenithan, presenting information on the newest global grant requirement, the Community Assessment or Needs Analysis. I'll use these terms interchangeably during this presentation. Beginning July 1st, 2018, a needs analysis or community assessment is required for any global grant proposal through the Rotary Foundation. So what is it, and how do we do them? The objectives for this video are to grasp the need for the community assessment, to review the methods for the assessment, and to help you apply these concepts to your own project, helping to create appropriate and valuable projects. To begin with, let's define and consider the rationale behind a community assessment. It's an analysis of the strengths versus the weaknesses and the assets versus the needs of a community. Keep the acronym SWAN, for strength, weaknesses, assets, and needs, in mind when carrying out your process. In addition, the Rotary Foundation urges you to seek local input and local perceptions to make these determinations as relevant to your target population as possible. The rationale stems from the fact that the Rotary Foundation is among the most generous and respected charitable organizations in the world. Rotary intends to remain so by guiding the efforts and commitment of its members into best practices in our humanitarian work. In order to maintain our unassailable position in the face of increasing competition for charitable contributions, Rotary and the Rotary Foundation must remain on the cutting edge by using our funds in a transparent, focused, and efficient manner. This means understanding the dynamics of your target community, prioritizing the needs and demands that you discover, leveraging local assets, and becoming an integrated partner with the community. Additional rationale includes creating engagement from the community in resolving their own issues, giving the community ownership of the outcomes of the project. Of course, the Rotary Foundation has produced literature and documentation to assist Rotarians through this process. What follows in this video is my own translation and interpretation of these guidelines. By its very nature, this video will be condensed from those Rotary policies rather than a verbatim repetition of documents you should read for yourself. Keep the next few comments in mind for the test that you must complete for credit at the end of this video. Rotary recommends that you begin with a clean mental slate without bias. Select leaders from the community with whom to partner, avoiding troublemakers, for example, those with their own agenda. You should include neglected segments of the community in your analysis. Avoid making any promises or decisions before the conclusion of your assessment, and always remember that you are an outsider. You may have already established the boundaries of your community through relationships and communications with the Rotary Club, who will ultimately be your host partner, or through similar research. Is that community a neighborhood, a whole city, a village, a school, a hospital? Defining the border or boundaries can be a challenge to an outsider. Use your host partner to assist in this endeavor. Having read the guidelines and resources available as background for this topic, I've elected to continue this presentation by working backwards from the form that we must all fill out to submit with our grant proposal. Of course, I will try to meet the intent of the exercise in the process. You are looking at page 1 of the 2-page form. This is the second page. I think it seems to be fairly straightforward. The first task is to clearly define your beneficiary community or institution, as I described above. It might be worth a moment to toss out a couple of thoughts about how a community can be divided. Is there a specific population to receive your attention? Are you caring only for people with a genetic disorder or a contagious disease? Or only those with a heart defect under the age of 18? Or are you only providing water to a single village? Are you assisting a specific school, a whole district, or a region? What about creating a population subdivision by income level or level of education? It is the responsibility of both the host and international partner to determine and define the edges of your community. Next, you are asked what groups in the community would receive a clear, direct, and immediate benefit from your project. If your target is school children, will their parents benefit, or their teachers and school staff? If you are supplying water to a village, will nearby residents be able to receive water? If you are teaching literary skills to adults, will children or neighbors benefit? Is there a special unmet need among unwed, divorced, or abused women or mothers? You can think of many ways to determine a community. After this, you must enter the beneficiary's demographic information, if relevant to the project, so that you can establish how you will confirm compliance with your own definition of community. We're about to discuss the process and mechanisms you'll use to make your analysis. You must provide information to the Rotary Foundation regarding who conducted the assessment by checking off an item or several items from this list. Host sponsor members, international sponsor members, a cooperating organization, university, hospital, local government, or some other choice that you would come up with yourself, like a primary school leader or perhaps a Rotary Community Corps. Then you would define the dates over which your data was collected. Probably the most important decision you'll make regarding the needs analysis is what method you will use to perform the task. We'll need to focus on the options available and endorsed by the Rotary Foundation for this analysis. They include a community meeting, a survey, interviews, a focus group, an asset inventory, community mapping, or some other method that you must define. I recommend that you pause each of the next few slides to read them, because I'm not going to read each slide in its entirety. Community meetings allow you to have many people share opinions and insight, building upon each other's comments. You can observe who the leaders are within the group, as well as determining who is a disruption. You must be cautious to avoid social inhibitions. Should women have a meeting separate from men? Should nurses be interviewed apart from doctors? Subservient populations can have valuable information that you might miss if part of your group is intimidated or silenced. A survey may seem to be the easiest method, in my opinion, but it has drawbacks when it comes to selecting a diverse group of willing participants. They must be literate, and they must actually respond. Computer access is not universal, nor is phone access. Interviews will give you a very open, detailed, and personal perspective on the needs and resources available in a community. But these will take a ton of time. Depending on the interviewer, you can end up with extremely valuable or practically useless information. A focus group might be quite complicated to pull off well. You must balance the tight focus of each question with the open-ended intent of this methodology. Similarly, the facilitator must prevent one outspoken participant from dominating the session while encouraging the soft-spoken individuals to raise their voices. An asset inventory lists resources, like people, places, or things that are available in a community. It lists hindrances or barriers that exist, and it seeks to leverage the good to overcome the bad. An outsider is unlikely to be able to evaluate this type of data. Community mapping, like the asset inventory, is a community-driven and is a visual rather than literal representation of the interconnectivity of a community. Analysis can be difficult, but barriers to resources can become clearer when presented in this fashion, as can clusters of valuable resources. Other is an option on the form, but what could it mean? I mentioned in the Global Grant presentation that community assessment is a work in progress within Rotary and within our district. We will all be learning as we go. I've posed a few thoughts on this slide. You can take them for what they are worth. I mentioned government reports as one option. Malawi produced a countrywide document on eye care needs that basically said they need more of everything. Would that be enough evidence for the Rotary Foundation to accept the eye care projects that I often perform? I don't know. Anyway, you need to make sure that you define your methodology clearly if you select an alternate community assessment strategy. Regardless of your method, you must inform Rotary who from the community participated in the assessment by listing those participants' names, titles, and so forth. At the time of this video, No one in our district had specifically met the requirements for a complete needs analysis for a global grant. In lieu of real information, I'm going to share an example that I was involved with from Tanzania, one of the nations where people with albinism have life and limb threatened by witch doctors who literally use their body parts in their incantations, potions, and talismans. It's hard to believe, I know. I would classify what I witnessed as a focus group from all of the possible methods listed above. Rotarians collected the stakeholders involved for a one-day fact-finding event. Leaders from Tanzania's Association for People with Albinism were there, along with outspoken members of the albino community. Politicians, healthcare providers, and representatives from the hospital systems from the region were present. There were also a number of international nonprofit agencies, like Standing Voice from England, Mennonite Central Committee from the United States, and Under the Same Sun from Canada, along with a few of the folks that these groups had recruited and assembled to address the needs of people with albinism. This consortium of groups, each with their own agendas, budgets, and focus, were asked to kibitz with each other to enhance each group's efforts and to avoid duplication of effort. This can be a challenge because each group wants to be able to claim and showcase the most heartwarming stories to share with their own fundraising group. I felt that the discussion was extremely valuable and enlightening. However, I don't know what came of it. I suspect that the nonprofits will continue to seek those photo ops and stories that will generate more giving, while more mundane things like psychological counseling will be overlooked. But I hope I'm wrong. Be aware that the Rotary Foundation provides detailed suggestions to help keep your project aligned within a single area of focus. Utilize these documents when structuring your needs analysis. They can keep your survey and interview questions on target, or your facilitator on track. The overarching philosophy is to collaborate well with partners and stakeholders, to engage them in the project planning and implementation, and to commit them to the success and sustainability of the project. Remember the Global Grant keywords shared in that previous Global Grant presentation. You are responsible for the accountability, sustainability, measurability, and accurate reporting of your project. A well-designed and implemented project will satisfy the intent of each of these keywords. Your community assessment will help you to create that well-designed, focused, and sustainable project. Thank you for your attention and good luck